What's going on, everybody? Patrick Auger here with Mr. Matthew Wells, Mr. Ant Walker, and Mr. Drake Riggs. And we're talking about the best UFC rematches ahead of one of the most anticipated UFC rematches at UFC 257, Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier. So, gentlemen, we've got a lot of fine rematches to select from this list. It's going to be different criteria. We'll keep it clean. We won't get too into each other about what we select. Hunt versus Silva 2. That being said, Mr. Wells, let's start off with you. What are some of your favorite UFC rematches and that you've loved to watch?
Number one on my list is the fight that should be very high on everybody's list, and that is Rory Mcdonald versus Robbie Lawler. I was lucky, very fortunate to be in attendance for that fight, and it was incredible. I went back and actually watched it just a few weeks ago, when I was really bored. I was like, let me throw this fight on and see if it still holds up. Yeah, it still holds up. One of the best fights ever, and if anybody watching this video right now has not seen it, go do so as soon as you finish watching this video. Don't stop this video, but go see it after the fact. One of the best fights ever, for sure.
Yeah, that's a very good one to start us off here. Mr. Riggs, since you did do research ahead of this and a lot of us did not, how about you go ahead and go next and pick your favorites?
So for me, favorite and what I think is the best are different, right? So personal favorites that I have that I didn't put on the list here that I shared with you guys is Cruz and Faber 2 and 3. I love those, as a big dominant Cruz stan and just, getting those redemption wins over Faber and all the trash talk that went into him, the rivalry and everything. Just fantastic performances by the Dominator. And then a notable mention, of course, would be Bisping and Rockhold 2. How can you not mention that one just from everything that went into that one and Bisping pulling off the crazy upset? Excellent stuff. Those are some favorites. But in terms of what is the best, which, they're also favorites too, but not over those ones, I would say, it is, Edgar Maynard 2 and 3, absolutely incredible. Two of the best fights ever. Those guys just meant to go together to put on fantastic fights. But in terms of what might be the best out of, it's so hard to pick, but Aldo Mendes 2, I think that fight, at the time, I saw that in a Buffalo Wild Wings, entire place was going crazy, man. I was like, geez, for a Chad Mendes fight, this is that's awesome turnout for people that were all into this. And just you look back on that one and it kind of gets buried by, I don't really know, like the timing maybe, but it's one of those fights that phenomenal. And I remember it did win fight of the year, I think, that year. But after that, it's like, it doesn't get talked about that much anymore, but maybe because it was pretty clear for Aldo, but still phenomenal back and forth action, that entire 5 rounds that it went. And just one that, you could say is like maybe, one of the better fights of all time, but just not as competitive as maybe it needed to be, I think. But that's a good one that I think should get some more love and is one of the best rematches.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to argue with Aldo versus Mendes too. I mean, that was such a banger of a fight. And as you said, a lot of people forget about that one, right? We forget about how good of a rematch that was. Mr. Ant Walker with the special guest, Adonis himself. What's some of your best rematches, my man?
Well, I definitely, before I go into a couple that the gentlemen previously have not mentioned, I do want to mention a little bit on there. So for Matt's, the Lawler and Mcdonald rematch, and of course, Don's is going to grab my headphones the whole time now. The Lawler McDonald rematch is by far one of the best fights in history. That was a great fight. And I think the best way to sum that fight up is the fight that followed it. And I believe that was UFC 189, Conor McGregor versus Chad Mendes. There was a point during that fight where they had an aerial shot while Mendes was on top of McGregor, and you just saw blood splattered all over the cage. Like, that was the perfect way to sum up what a chaotic fight Lawler and McDonald put on in their rematch. Drake had a couple good picks there. I was also in the building for the Cruz and Faber 3, and which was the same card as Bisping Rockhold 2. great fights, but just not competitive enough for this sort of list. So I understand putting those as favorites, especially the Bisping knockout, because that was one of my favorite moments. Probably my favorite moment to witness live, but not worthy of all-time great rematches, in my opinion, due to the one-sided nature. But my rematch that I want to highlight comes courtesy of Conor McGregor, and that is his rematch with Nate Diaz. That was a fantastic fight. You can score that fight in so many different ways, and you wouldn't be wrong. I loved it, and I think it also showed the full aspects of mixed martial arts. They had great stand-up work in there, great work in the clinch, great work on the ground. There's really nothing to hate about that fight. That is probably my favorite rematch of all time.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to hate Conor McGregor, you totally can. I get that he rubs people the wrong way, but that fight is one of his best fights, right? It's very rare we've seen Conor McGregor go beyond round 1 or 2. A lot of times he stops somebody or he gets stopped. You have, Khabib, eventually finishing him, I think, in round 3. You had the Holloway fight between McGregor, which was a good fight, went the entire distance. But other than that, lots of stoppages. But when it comes to McGregor's best and most fun fight to watch, for me, I would agree that it's Diaz McGregor 2 all day long. I mean, fantastic fight that really showcased both men's strengths and just a great back and forth. You guys have hit on a lot of the best ones that I would pick as well. Some other ones that we should mention, courtesy of a little bit of Mr. Riggs, who delved into the list, and a couple that I'll dig down into a little bit is, you got Rose versus Joanna 2. That was a great comeback, especially, after that first fight. A lot of people thought, oh man, Rose has just got Joanna's number, finished her. Like, why do an immediate rematch? All this stuff. But that was a great back and forth. DC versus Stipe 2, same type of deal in terms of, quick finish in round 1 that ended up being a fantastic rematch. Some of these are Poirier versus Holloway 2. That fight is amazing. I don't care if Blaine Henry, if you're watching this, I do not care what you say. That fight is incredible. You need to go back and rewatch it before you talk about it being one-sided. But I love you, Blaine. But still, just fantastic fight. In terms of McGregor versus Poirier 2, guys, because now we've talked about a lot of these great fights. We've given the audience some fights to go look for if they're looking for good rematches. Where do we think McGregor Poirier is going to stack up? Do we think this is going to be a great rematch? Or do we think it's going to be kind of one-sided one way or the other?
I think it's going to be a great rematch. I think we've seen enough growth from both men. And I think from everything we're hearing about their camps, how they're going, and the level of shape that they're in right now, I don't think there's any reason to doubt the quality of this fight. And probably more so with the improvements that Poirier has made since they last met. I mean, Poirier was a high level, but at times middling 145er, who, a guy who constantly struggled to get over the hump. But at 155, more into his natural body and at his athletic best. Someone who has a ton of power. He's gained a lot of muscle in that division. He's bullied people. He's outclassed them. He's out finessed them. He's done some pretty impressive things. We're talking about a guy who finished the other recent former interim lightweight title holder in Justin Gaethje. I mean, so much growth from him. McGregor, on the other hand, has not always fought the highest level of guys. Since the Cerrone fight being the example of that. But he did do a lot of good things on his own right and has improved a lot of aspects of his game. And since, what we perceived as his weaknesses, he's shown himself to be strong at certain points. I mean, I'll point back to the Diaz rematch where you might point to his submission defense as being his Achilles heel. But I mean, this is a guy that was pulling off X-guard sweeps against Nate Diaz in their rematch. So, his groundwork is top notch, even if Khabib, was able to get the better of him there. So I think there's plenty of reason to believe that we're going to have a great fight between two great fighters. I mean, they're both coming in this tip-top shape and taking this deadly serious with a lot to prove. So Yeah, I would be very surprised if this didn't end up on a list in this sort of discussion in the long term.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly can see it, especially with the growth that Poirier has made and we've seen, and McGregor's making. McGregor's doing things behind the scenes, right? If you watch, as you mentioned, the Diaz rematch, but even against Habib, he struggled. Everybody struggles against Habib and the wrestling, but it's not like he was out there and just completely hopeless. Like he was doing things, he was trying, he failed, but a lot of people, pretty much everyone has failed against Habib. It's not that he is just been sitting on the sidelines drinking proper 12 and not doing anything. We know that he's going to come into this training and trying to improve on his game. It's really just more a question of growth. And I'm with you. This could be a great rematch. Mr. Wells, what do you think? Do you think we're going to, are you as confident as Ant is here?
I think it has the possibility of being a fantastic fight that could end out of nowhere. Like I could see someone getting clipped in this fight being over early, but I would suspect, or I would expect those exchanges. Let's just say if they meet in the middle and have a few really intense exchanges and somebody gets clipped, I could see this fight ending quickly, or I could see it just being an incredible 5-round back and forth, kind of similar to the Conor and Nate Diaz too that we've already talked about on this video here. I expect it to just be incredible, whether it's long or short, because there's a lot at stake here. We very well could hear that the winner of this fight gets crowned like an interim championship, or it's something like that, depending on what happens with Habib. There's a lot on the line here. Like has been mentioned, they're both training their asses off. Both of them have improved since their first fight. Obviously, the weight classes they've been jumping around, or at least Conor's been jumping around between 155, 170, fighting, albeit not fighting career welterweights, but still having fights at 170, and coming back down to 155 for this one. It's going to be an incredible fight, man. I don't see how, on paper, everything points to this being a great fight. If it comes out there and ends up sucking, I will be very, very shocked.
That's two for saying it could easily be a very great rematch. I agree with you, Matt, in terms of the possibility of the clip, especially we are at 155, right? So it is a little bit lighter weight for both men, or at least more for Conor. But we've seen Dustin be knocked out at 155. I mean, Michael Johnson did it. It's possible. Drake, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think we're going to get, an all-time rematch, or is it going to be a Michael Johnson type knockout?
Yeah, no, this fight's gonna suck, man. I'm gonna be the opposite here. No, I'm not gonna lie to you right now. This fight, I think, will be, if it gets out of the first round, we're in for a real treat. But that's a big if, because I think either of these guys can put each other away early. I hope not, for the sake of it being a drawn out battle, which I think it has all the potential to be. But in that case, I feel like it's more likely that Conor would be the one to finish it in the first round, just because we haven't seen him, be in a whole lot of trouble with a striker in the first round, like get rocked or anything bad like that. Not to say that Poirier cannot do it. He absolutely can, but it's kind of one of those things where until I see it, it's going to be hard to predict something like that happening. So I lean towards first round Conor, and then, if it goes past that, we're definitely in for something crazy. So it'll be good. I hope so. I don't want it to be like the first fight.
Listen, is Dustin really a better striker than Floyd Mayweather? Come on.
that actually caused me physical pain to hear you say that.
Well, that's rough. I mean, yeah. If you like this content, make sure you like the video, you subscribe, hit that notification button to be part of the elite 10% that get notifications when we drop videos immediately, so you can get in on all this action. I could see this going any which way. I'm with Drake more in terms of, I think if it ends early, it's probably Conor, just because he's got that one punch knockout power. Poirier is much more of a volume TKO guy. He'll sting you and then follow up with lots of shots. Usually gets it done a little bit later in rounds from some of his other fights. So yeah, I could see this going either way. I hope we're in for a great fight going back and forth. I mean, I'm not sure what else we have to say about this one in terms of the rematch, but I'll throw it to wrap this one up. I'll throw it to you, Ant. What's Adonis telling you about how this is going to go? Where do I put money? He's obviously trying to take your headphones off to ask you, to tell you, like, help me put on this first. So.
He really wants to chime in here. The way I see this going, I see them having some pretty wicked exchanges to start it, and then from there they realize they're going to have to pace themselves. So I think it's going to play out a lot like the 5-round war between Poirier and Dan Hooker. That's kind of what I'm thinking this turns out to be. And it's going to be a lot of wild exchanges. And I think Matt makes a very good point there. With the finishing ability of both men, it is very possible we have this war, but it's also possible that we have a quick spark and someone is out. I'm going to liken this to the Pacquiao and Marquez fights, where you saw a lot of hard exchanges. You saw a lot of back and forth. But at any moment, that finish that we kind of remember that series from, Pacquiao going face down in the fourth fight, that could have happened at any moment in that whole series. I think we're going to have a feeling like that, to where it can end in an instant, but there's going to be a whole lot of damage doled out both ways on the way there. That it's going to be anybody's guess as far as the judges are concerned. But people are getting hurt. That's for sure.
Not a bad call. Anybody disagree with that? Anybody want to say it's going to go differently?
McGregor takedown in 10 seconds. He's going to get the submission.
McGregor's submission, man.
I wonder what the bet is on that.
Like, McGregor by flying omoplata? Yeah.
Yes.
Called it.
Make sure... make sure to comment and let us know again what you think are the best rematches, how you think the fight's going to go. I'm going to end this one definitively on you, Matt. Here, how's this go? It's
going to end in a TKO.
Okay, and I like it. Mysterious keeps it keeps it open ended. There you go. TKO. Bet on that line that just says TKO. That's it. There you go. There's betting advice. What's up, everybody? Patrick
Hi,
Auger
everybody.
here with Mr. Wells. We're gonna restart that. You threw me off, Matt.
Gotta keep it.
I'm not a seasoned vet.
I know.
I'm not a seasoned vet like Ed. I can't just be thrown off, man.